That burning fire, that's what brings us into a place like this. We're out in the world. We haven't found a place where we feel home, where we feel like it's ours. But we know that there's more than whatever it is we're dealing with. Maybe we feel broken. Maybe we feel hurt. Maybe things feel like they're not working. Whatever the bright fire is, there's something that brings us to a place like this. And I hear from lots of folks that when they walk in here, they can feel the love. They can feel the ease and joy. They can feel the belonging. Well, what I want to tell you today is that's not an accident. That didn't happen because the sky split open and everybody just got the message, let's go here. It didn't happen. Well, maybe that happened. I don't know. It didn't happen because we set up the chairs the right way or that there's smiling faces when you first walk in. It happened not by accident. It happened because there are people who were here before you who knew what it was, knew that they cared about change more than comfort. They cared about becoming the people who then would be so that others would then want to be around. They knew, as we know in science of mind, that it is changing our consciousness, the consequence of changing our consciousness, aligning with truth, is love. And so there are the 7 practitioners, and there are others here who have gone through the classes and done the work, who set the stage for the belonging that so many of us feel when we walk in this place. That's what set the stage of it. And so it is this teaching that creates the space. And I know and have heard from lots of folks that you talk about classes way too much. And I've heard that the only reason I do that is so Ash and I can make the money. And the thing is about classes, and the feeling that people have when they walk in here, and the tension between those two is one is enjoying the fruit, the other is tending to the tree. I know that there are folks who walk in here who get the good feeling vibe and hope nothing deeper is asked of them. But that isn't what a science of mind center is. And that's what this is. We call ourselves Center for Spiritual Living, but the groundedness of what created the space that everybody enjoys in belonging is a philosophy that understands that our consciousness shapes our experience. And so that's why I talk about classes all the time. I am tending to the tree. And I see the results of that. I get to experience the results of how it impacts our community so that everybody can feel that sense of belonging. But I want to be very clear about something, that if all we do is protect the good feelings, the depth that created those good feelings in the first place will disappear. And the depth that created those feelings in the first place were the people who were willing to step up and take the classes. And that's what continues. That's why I'm so excited about the 9 folks in ACS and the one we have who's in the last year of practitioner training. These are the folks that are going to continue on, can take what we have created here and continue it in a way that will hold it and tend to that tree so that all of us can enjoy the fruit. And that's why I get up here and speak about it so much. Not so Ash and I can make a couple extra bucks, but because that's what we actually stand for here, is creating that space. And how that space was originally created was by this place signing up with an organization that teaches science of mind. And so that's what we do. And in that, we get to a place where we get to experience that fruit. Belonging, love, ease, joy. They don't come out of anywhere. They come out of a space grounded in science of mind. They come out of a space grounded in the teachings of Dr. Ernest Holmes, which we put up there at one of his prayers, and which I get up here and speak about. There are people here who say I don't quote Dr. Holmes enough, but I feel like my personal experience of it is really what can carry. It's what carries me. Because I remember the first time, for you new folks here, I remember the first time I walked into a Science of Mind center. And I heard the spiritual leader get up and speak to what had been aching in my heart. What I'd been missing, which was a sense of my own spiritual authority, my own sense of creation, my own ability to be in this world in a good way because I was a powerful, creative, spiritual being. I get up there and say it each week because I remember hearing it when I first walked in to a Science of Mind center. Somebody asked me to speak on this, to say, how come if I talk about classes so much, why am I always also talking about my biggest transformations being in the cabin in the woods? And I'm going to answer that today. So I walk into this Science of Mind Center in Asheville, North Carolina, and I am tremendously moved by the 2 spiritual leaders. It's so funny, you know, I'm talking 30 years ago, and here I am 30 years later, and you have 2 spiritual leaders, Ash and myself. And so I recreated, in many ways, what I first experienced. And so there I was in that center, and they kept talking about classes. And I kept saying, why do you keep talking about classes? Isn't it enough just to hear you talk on Sunday? And they were like, not if you want your consciousness to shift. Not if you really want to see changes in your life that you may not experience without the help that these classes and this philosophy can have as an impact on your life. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I took the foundations class. How many here have taken the foundations class? Great class, right? Great teacher right there. And so I took the class, and then I started thinking about what they were teaching me, started seeing some results in my life. Some things started to shift. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit different in my world. I went in, at the time, I was newly divorced, now had a split custody with my son. I was pretty, in fact, one of the spiritual leaders there, John Waterhouse, when I first walked into his office, said I was the darkest person he ever met, and it was cool. I started sitting in men's circle with him. I started volunteering. I was running sound before I was the music director there. And I started taking more classes because I realized the impact it was having on my life. And as it impacted my life, I wanted to be of service to others so it could impact their lives. And that's why I started volunteering. And so then we got to practitioner training. And I was like, okay, now I'm a practitioner. Now what? I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to stop my consciousness growing. That's what got me to go to ministerial school. I didn't go because I had this great calling to be a minister. Honestly, I never got a great calling to be a minister. I just wanted to keep going, keep growing. And then it just got to the point where after I graduated, the only way to keep going was to do this. And so I started doing this, but it all started there. So how does this lead to the cabin in the woods? All right. So I'm at the center in Asheville. I had just completed being the music director there because I was now traveling a lot and talking at centers and playing music at centers across the United States. Hadn't made it up to Canada at that point. But I was playing at like 75 different centers around the United States. I played music, did the talk, and so I wasn't the music director there anymore. And when I said I was going to ministerial school, my ex-wife said, I don't want to be married to a minister. And so I felt my life fall apart again. And so I'm living in this house with this woman because at the time I didn't have a job, I had no income, and I had no money. So I didn't know how to move out. But I had this teaching, you see. I was a practitioner in this teaching. And so I stayed in what I knew to be true, which is that my life works. I stayed in what needs to be true, which I can't see what's going to happen next. This is all so incredibly devastating, but somehow I rise. Because at that point, I'd taken so many classes that it was solid in me, enough for me to then be solid in the fact that this is going to work out somehow. And then sure enough, that's when I saw the newspaper ad that said free rent for a cabin in the woods in exchange for fixing up the cabin. And I have some pretty good carpentry skills, not great, but pretty good. Nothing you'd want to hire, but enough to do what I was going to do. And so I went up, met with the landlady, and she invited me into the house, and we got along great. I brought my dog with me at the time, and we had a deal. And then just like that, with no money, no prospects, nothing going on, I had a place to live. That's this stuff working. That's what's possible when you look beyond what you think might be possible. Like, how do you get a place for no rent? I didn't know how it was going to work out. It just did. And there I was in the cabin in the woods. And so now I'm in this cabin in the woods, and I still have no money. I don't know how I'm going to feed myself. I got a roof over my head, but I don't know how I'm going to feed myself. And I'm sitting there and staying with what I have learned in class. This is why I believe in this stuff so much. Because this really happened to me, and if it wasn't for what I learned in class, I don't know what would have happened to me. I have in my life fallen flat and wound up in the hospital so many, really, like once a decade since I was 10. Until then. And then the phone rang. It was a job I had applied for 6 months earlier. And I have, because I've done 97 different jobs. One of them was computer programming. It was a computer programming job that I could do sitting in the cabin, just go in once in a while to show them my progress. And it would take me a year to complete. So it paid for a year, just like that. Next thing that happened, because I decided to go to ministerial school, is out of nowhere. And ministerial school was $36,000. Now, you're talking to a guy who had no job, so I had no idea when I signed up for ministerial school how I was going to pay for it. And then out of nowhere, remember I said $36,000, came a check for $36,000 from a relative I hadn't been in touch with for over 20 years. That I had no idea would ever send me a dime. And I took that check and signed it right over to Holmes Institute, and boom, that was that. Ministerial school, paid for. This stuff is amazing. And so then I'm in this cabin, all right? And why I talk about the cabin so much is from this place of solidity, because what I believe this teaching gives us more than anything is a solidity inside ourselves that allows for us to then have other incredible, awesome things happen. Insights, changes. That's when I had the dream about Ash. I mean, long before we met, her face came to me in a dream. I'm out there and I get this whole work around how intuition works. I mean, which changed the course of my life again, which is why I talk about it so much. But if I hadn't been able to sit in these teachings, I would have just been devastated like I'd been many times before and been picking myself up out of the gutter. I mean, literally, I've been homeless. So I know what it's like to fall down into the gutter. But this time, that didn't happen because of what I learned here. And then I was able to build on that. So I had this incredible foundation to build what I talked to you about that I learned in that cabin in the woods. But it started with the taking of classes here. So I'm sorry that I harp on these. I'm not sorry that I harp on these classes. I'm really not. I'm sorry that it comes across in any way than gentle. That I am sorry about. I'm not up here trying to hawk something to you guys. Whether you sign up for class or not is up to you. I'm excited about something that gave me a life, that gave me a way to live in the world that matters to me. That's what I get excited about. That's what brings me forth and makes me want to talk about this stuff the way I do. I hear that some people, are upset because the classes are so expensive. Talk to me. If you're interested in taking a class, talk to me. We can work something out because I want you to have this. I want you to feel that sense of ground, that sense of foundation, that sense of possibility, and the shift into being loving in a way that was not possible for me before. That I'm still working on. My new thing is gentle. I've given my wife and anybody else here permission to point out when I'm not being gentle, because I'd like to be gentle. So that's my growing edge right now. I know sometimes I don't recognize, it turns out, when I'm being harsh. And so I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just the way I was raised in New York City, right? But I want to be gentle. And so if I come across differently, please point it out to me. I'm good. I can take it. I'm a big boy. So let's work together, right? Tending the tree. When I'm speaking about classes, I'm not saying that belonging doesn't matter. It does. But that fruit of belonging starts with tending the tree. And that's why I speak to this stuff. But you get to take this at your own pace. You're the one who showed up here with that calling. And when your calling is ready, you'll sign up for a class. So if me speaking about classes is not really what you're interested in, well, then take in the other stuff I'm talking about. Because it's usually in a talk with a lot of other ideas, or at least one other idea. because I like to focus on one idea. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember what the heck I'm talking about. And it works better when I remember why I'm up here and when I'm, trying to get across. Just seems to work better that way. So, we are a place of peace. We are loving. I want everybody to feel like they belong. If classes aren't for you, you still get to belong. Mine is to speak to those who are interested in supporting Tend the Tree. Tending to that which grounds us all, because this is a Science of Mind center. And for anybody new who wants to know more about that, we got a class coming up. It's called The Essential Ernest Holmes. How many weeks is it? 10? It's a 10-week class. It's being taught by a ministerial student of ours named Joseph Gabrielson. You don't see him here much because he's disabled, but he's amazing. And he has a depth of insight into this stuff that is extraordinary. So he'll be teaching it online. It starts when? March 3rd. Look, right. Thank you, Sue, for being on top of it. Starts March 3rd. It goes into the essentials of Ernest Holmes, so you really get to see where he was coming from in that class. We've shifted the class around so it's more experiential, so it's not just academic, and it's there for those who are ready to take another step. If you're not, it's okay. But I am going to keep talking about classes. And I'm going to keep talking about belonging, and I'm going to keep talking about my personal experience in all this, because I love you guys. And I want you to know that your experience matters as much as mine. All I'm doing is modeling what I want you to be doing, which is looking at your personal experience. What's your growing edge? Mine is being more gentle. What's yours? If we can get into the habit of speaking to that, looking at that, seeing, then we'll be kinder and more compassionate, more loving for each other anyway. This is how we can build community, right? Tend to the tree and still enjoy the fruit. I love you all so much. Thank you.